Maybe you're like me, you like to just get started. So I want to show you the quick and dirty to get you started. The importance between learning branch angle, critical to know the difference between having a tree and a fruit tree, and showing you the 3 simplest versions of steps. So with this you can get started. All the rest in the film are important details that you will need to know. How do you make the cut? When do you cut? When do you prune? Why do you prune? All of these will be in the rest. But if you want to just get started, or if you've seen the whole film and you want to come back and be able to prune without having to go through the whole thing, check out the quick and dirty. So the first point is branch angle. Do you want a tree? Imagine I'm the trunk. These are the branches. You see? They're up in the air, pointed up. That's a tree. You'll get a tree. Or do you want fruit? So if your angle's down here, this will give you fruit. It will not go crazy on branches. So learning that distinction. Do you want a tree? Do you want fruit? We'll go through that many times, because if there's one thing that's the most obvious and simple as you practice, will be to look at a branch and know, oh, that's fruit. Oh, that's a tree branch. So that distinction is really important. The next point are the 3 steps. We'll start with the first one. First one is for the centrifuge technique. You say, oh, well, I don't need to know techniques. Let's just say the first one will be to clear a chimney around your tree. Maybe you've seen what a chimney looks like, right? It's a pipe. Now imagine the tree trunk is on the inside of your chimney. So that's the one that guides where your chimney will go. And all we want to do is have a chimney that's clear for 2 reasons. 1, to let air go up and down along the trunk to decrease the amount of disease because it dries the tree out from the center. And the second is that it allows light in from the top, like a light chimney, if you like. There's only one exception to that rule. If you're in some place like we saw this in the south of France, where light isn't limiting, you've got a lot of light. If you're in Mediterranean climate, if you're in California, if you're in the south where you don't get winter, or what we call winter, then you may want to leave at the top of your chimney 1 or 2 or 3 branches there, and don't clear everything out of the top. So it's like having a chimney cap. Imagine having a cap. Now that cap lets air out, but it doesn't let the sun come in, and so you don't risk getting a sunburn on the inside of your tree. So that's the only exception. Every place that pretty well gets snow, you will want a chimney right up to the top. Now, how do you do the chimney? Quick and dirty. You don't usually need these unless it's the first time and you've never done the chimney. You may need it for some branches. I'll show you the formula, but you don't need the formula for how to know how big a chimney is. The bigger the trunk, the bigger the chimney should be. If you can't put your arms around the trunk of the tree, then you'll need a chimney that is measured by your body length. That would be one side of the chimney, and the same with the other. This is not in that range. So you could do with what I call just your hand measure. So that's about 6 inches or 15 centimeters. So you could quickly do that by putting your hand on a branch. Put your hand on a branch to check if there's anything. Up, you say, if I put my hand here, here's a couple of branches. Now, I could get fancy with my secateurs, or I could just break these off. Now you say, well, what are you breaking off? I'm breaking off what isn't a major branch. or a future major branch. And details of what's the distinction we'll see later. But put your hand on, that's in the range, then take it off. And keep going. That's in the range, take it off. Oh, these are being trained. We'll see that in the training versus pruning part. That's a training wire, so I could put that aside for next time if I need. And I keep going. Here's something, now that's getting higher, but that's not a branch. You say, well, what is a branch? A branch is anything that has grown, I consider anything that has grown at least 12 inches. So 30 centimeters, this is more than 30 centimeters. This is the new growth from last year. And we'll learn how to distinguish the years of a branch. But if it grew this much from the trunk, that's a branch. So you can leave that to give you options. But anything else, you can remove. So as we get higher, you can use a ladder. I highly recommend you get yourself some extensions, get yourself some poles, and I like these because being a pole myself, these are quite good to use. And then with the pole, you can continue without having to go up. So this is in the chimney up here, take that off. This is in the chimney, take that off. That's in the chimney, that didn't grow. How much did it have to grow? 12 inches. That didn't grow that much, take that off. That too, you say, if you distinguish them, and we'll see that, that is actually a fruiting spur. Think, why do you want to take off what's going to have fruit? Because it's in the chimney, and you'll see later, it just makes it simpler and clearer for the tree. So take that off, and so on and so on. That's in the chimney. Whoop. And let me give you another little tip right away. I always go by, when in doubt, cut it out. You say, well, what do you mean? Well, because a lot of times pruning is a mental activity and you get tired of making decisions. So if you're hesitating, cut it out. Then you can't put it back. And keep going right to the top. That's in the chimney. That's in the chimney. This is even in the chimney. Oh, I cracked that one. So if I cracked it, and I cracked it a lot, think, oh, now I have to cut it off. We'll see that in training. Just because it's cracked doesn't mean it's gonna die. So if I cracked it and it was in a pretty good spot, actually that one isn't in a pretty good spot, but I could leave it. If it's half of the bark is holding, it will still give a good branch. This one is not in the right angle. We'll see that in step 2. So we can come back to it for step 2. And continue all the way up to the top. Chimney. Chimney. Now we're up near the top. Chimney. Chimney. And that gives us a pretty good pipe. There's a couple left up there. That's why I say use a pole instead of a ladder, because if you have to go up to do this, it's far more risky. Chimney and chimney. Oops, there's one more. There. Now, I've got pretty well my step 1 done. I've got my chimney figured out, and so that is the first point. One of the most important things about having a good chimney is it allows regenerating branches to come out. There are latent buds in there, and if the light is sufficient, those branches will come out. So that's the first step. Second step is to choose to keep 12 to 15 branches. That's all a tree needs to be in full production. So you say 12 to 15. If you counted your branches on most trees, a tree will generally have double that. So if you wanted finally to be down to 12 branches, most trees will have produced 24. But nature is always like that. Always give you more than what you need, so you always have spares. So now that you're pruning, you'll say, okay, how many have I got? So count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 back here. Wow, we're already up to 10. I can see this tree's got more than it needs. And 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Whoa, here's some I should have taken off. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's got about 28 branches. Obviously a lot more than 12 to 14. So now there's a simple three-letter acronym, LBL. And I thought, LBL, let's put it into a label, LABEL. Anyway, figure out a way to remember that it's LBL. And what does each stand for? L is low, B is big, and L is line. Let's start with the first one. L for low branches. The gentleman I learned this from, he said your low branches, just don't like having a saw in my hands if I'm talking. The low branches are anything that's below 4 feet. That's below 4 feet. So they recommended we remove branches that are below 4 feet. Well, you know what I got a lot of here? We got a lot of rabbits and voles. In fact, I see some rabbit chewed down there. So if I take out these branches, and this was something I learned from Sepp Holzer, he said, if you don't leave branches, the critters will choose. Do I eat branches? There's none to eat, so I'll eat the trunk. And I've seen this, especially in this block 3 years ago. We had every branch below 3 feet was completely white, but not one tree suffered on the trunk. So I now keep low branches. I don't remove them. Low branches being some that when they're bent down like this will end up touching the ground, and the fruit will be on the ground. I accept that. It's not the neatest or the nicest, but it's great insurance in a year when there's a lot of voles and a lot of rabbits, and you may have other critters that come and chew the bark. So keep your low branches. If you have a very tall tree, then your low branches, if it's a large standard tree, your low branches might be 6 feet up in the air, and as they spread out, they may stretch so that they actually touch the ground. And that's okay, that's your low branch, but you want to keep that, and you want to keep some branches touching the ground. That's low. What was B for? B was big branches. How do you know if a branch is big or not? You look where the branch is attached. So take that one for example. The point of attachment and the diameter of that branch versus the trunk. So if that's 1 centimeter and the trunk is 2 centimeters, 1 to 2 or 50%, then that's a branch you may want to remove. In this case, that is definitely not 50%. These are getting close to 50%. So they may be candidates that I would look at removing. If it's over 50, if it's 60, 70% of the diameter, then you shouldn't really ask yourself too long, do I take it out or not? Because it's very likely to have grown that big. It has a branch going up, far more vigorous than that. it has a branch going up that is trying to be the new trunk. You don't want two trunks on a fruit tree. So just to make it simple, that's an easy rule. You look at the tree top to bottom. Are there branches that are too big? And I see that one is. There's a couple up there that are. So those are the ones, that's the rule to help you choose which branches to remove. So there's a few up there, and I'll see what else. So low, that's fine. Keep some low branches. Big, look at the branches that are 50% or more of the diameter of the trunk. And the third one is line. That's a pretty simple one when you have a planting that in some way is a row. Even if you're planting just 2-3 trees, maybe you're putting in 2 trios and you put them in as 3 and 3. Well, you'll probably have them in some way close by each other. So line is simply any branch that goes in the line. So here from this tree to that tree and to that one, that's the line. That's the one line, and the other line is 90 degrees to it, or going right out into the aisle. So those are the two. You don't want to favor those branches. You don't want a branch growing from this trunk straight towards the other tree, and you don't want a branch growing from here straight out into the aisle. And we'll see examples of these, but that's the ones. If they're in that angle, then they are candidates for easy choice removal to get down to your 12 to 15 branches. So let's select a few off of here. In the big category, there are a few. There's that one back there. There's this one. In fact, this one could be the new trunk. And I could straighten this tree out, and we'll do that. Straighten it out because it's actually starting to lean. Although this is the trunk, and that's the one I cleared the chimney, I either straighten that out by pulling it, or I just cut it off. And I don't like to be attaching trees too much, so let's just cut this one off. The other branch is perfectly able to take its place. And we will see tools and which tools to do different jobs. So that took out a big branch, but you say that actually could have been the trunk. And it could have been the trunk, but don't be afraid of taking out a branch that's not in the right place. And now that one, you can see the diameter. That is a big branch, so there's one strike against it, but it also goes straight out into the lane. So because it's one that's not in the right angle for the line, then that one too. Take that one out too. So we removed 2 branches, so we're still not at the number, but because we took out and we changed actually what becomes the trunk. That's chimney again. That's chimney. That's chimney. Now we've reduced the number of branches. Let's count it again. We're at 10, 11, 12. I see this one back there. That could have been removed in the chimney. 11, 12, 13, 14. That should have been removed in the chimney. So you see, as you get through your steps, you can come back on the points that weren't done. I see another one that should have been. And there's another important point is try to look at your tree from at least 2 angles. We'll look at that when we see looking at the tree. Get it from 2 angles to see what else has to be done. And that is the second step. So we saw the chimney, we saw choosing 12 to 15 branches, and the third one, there is a third step, is a final polish. Now, if you're happy with your tree, you've got it down to the number of branches you wanted, the third one is just doing a polish or a pruning, final pruning on each branch that you're keeping. If you only have 15 branches, now it's not that bad of a job. The simplest way to do that, and should have brought my bigger glove, but you want a big glove to just pass your hand under the branch, and everything that you hook onto, you will usually break. That one's big enough with this glove that I don't want to break it. That I hook on. And why do that? It's a pruning of the branch without fiddling. I love this technique because that was always the hardest thing mentally, is do I leave this one? Don't I leave this one? Now you can do it with your eyes closed. You run your hand under the branch, whoop, I'm hooking something on. You take it off. So if you don't even have to see what you're doing, then that becomes pretty quick. Run my hand down here. Oh, here's a big branch. I can break that off. Keep going. Oh, I come to this one. That's underneath the branch. That's a bigger one. Take it off. Keep going. You come to a branch underneath. Keep going. This, and there you go. So you go branch by branch, clearing off everything that is underneath. And that's all the pruning you need to do on this branch. We'll see more details about the branch and integrity and so on. But go through your whole tree, clearing out whatever, and all of a sudden, now you get a whole lot more air between branches because you've taken these little ones. And you say, why take out those? Why not take out these above? Because the branch that's under the main branch is going to be more in the shade. It'll produce smaller fruit. It will produce fruit that is not going to be colored as it should be. It just makes it simple. I said this technique is really meant to get you going quick and dirty. So let's review. We saw the first step, clear the chimney. Second step, 12 to 14 branches, looking at the rule of low, big, and line. And the third step is a final polish, is a pruning by passing something underneath the branch and taking out whatever's underneath. With those three, you got more than enough to get started, remembering the difference. Do you want a tree or do you want fruit? If that's a good reminder to get you going, great. And there's a lot more details to come, so stay tuned. Hey, please subscribe and check out our latest video.